So one of the most common questions I get is around negotiations. So I wanted to create a video specifically to answer all of your questions and give you strategies and techniques that I use to dominate the negotiations in selling over $500 million worth of real estate. In today's video, we're going to talk about my favorite tips and techniques to building out an ultimate negotiation strategy. Point number one, always make an offer. When it comes down to generating leads in the commercial world, the next step for myself and for my team is we send over an offer 100% of the time, every time, on every lead. What this allows us to do is shorten the time frame in which the sales cycle takes place. Because instead of having to try to get all the details that we possibly can from the property, and then once we collect everything, we'll put it together in a beautiful little package. We think like investors first, so we 100% of the time make an offer. The offer starts the negotiations. Point number two, never get emotional. How they react is not something you can control when it comes to the offer you've submitted. But what you can control is how you respond to those specific reactions. Let's just say that they react in a crazy way, which they get super frustrated and pissed off and they start cursing at you or yelling at you, I would never take this type of deal, blah, 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 blah. But it's how you respond in those moments that are gonna allow you to convert deals at a higher rate. Realize that now it's a time to take a step back, take a deep breath, and realize, hey, we're gonna get this deal done. I didn't say to take the deal, I just wanted to get the ball started. And I know it's not this price, but at what price would you consider selling the property for? That flows right into point number three, which is learning and practicing the objection handlers in order to get these deals done. Because it's important to realize something. Just like when they react in a crazy way or they give you some type of objection, you need to learn how to be on your toes or be agile in that sales script. So as soon as they say something, you're able to overcome that objection so that we can keep the negotiation process going. Point number four, you want to start lower than you think. Of course, we're talking about some ways that they could be reactive in that response, but the commercial real estate world is about great deals. It's all about the money. And if it doesn't make money, it doesn't make sense to buy it. You want to make sure that when you are presenting offers, you're going to want to make sure that you're presenting lower offers than you think you need to be presenting, because that's the starting point. Just like the reason why most sellers don't want to give you a price first is because they don't want to say a number that's too low when you would have said something higher, okay? Because they're negotiating too. Because that's what this whole entire game is, especially when it comes to listing. Well, what do you think it's worth? Or what would you make an offer at? If you can get somebody to give you a price in the process, right? Which is when you're speaking to somebody and start the first part of the conversation where you're already open, you ask the opening line, and they've said, yeah, I'm possibly open to selling the property. So the next question can be, so at what price would you consider selling the property for? And they go, well, I want 10 million. Or, well, make me an offer. Obviously, you're hoping that they give you a number which benchmarks, because it's gonna bracket the pricing. When you have bracketed pricing, which basically means they're book ending at what their price point is. So they say 10 million. So that means great. Okay, cool. So it's never gonna be higher than the 10 million because I just told you it was 10 million. The point is that they're starting the bookend process. So they bracket their price point when they give you a number. So I wanna bracket the other side. So like what's happening here is that by me making a really low ball offer, I have room here because they might be able to come down here and I'm starting so low that me meeting here is still a really, really good deal. The problem is that what happens is that they tell you 10 mil and then he's like, oh yeah, sure, let me throw in a low ball offer because Henry told me to write up an offer. 9.8, that's not a good deal. Maybe 9.8 doesn't actually make sense. Today, I had a guy who said, I want $2 million for my property. I'm like, okay, that sounds great. Ran the numbers, like 2 million is actually a really, really, really good deal. And guess what? We still offered him 1.6 million. 2 million was a great deal, but he price bracketed. I'm price bracketing because I'm hoping I can get him down to 1.7 or 1.8, which means it'll even be a better deal. What is it? It doesn't mean I just have to agree to the price. I will always try to negotiate a little bit. Okay, point number five, everything is negotiable until it's not. So what I mean by this is when they tell you a price, just realize that even if they say not a penny less, until it's actually shown where you bring them $1,000 less or $10,000 or $100,000 less than that price point and they still decline, everything's still negotiable. Don't take everything they say so literally. Take it with a grain of salt because it's not exactly always accurate. If hypothetically somebody says, I'm open to seller financing, but it's got to be 6%, no questions asked, that's it. And then you put an offer of where the price makes sense and then you say 5% interest only, they go, okay, this makes sense. Well, then it really wasn't non-negotiable. Everything's negotiable until it's not. Point number six, never be afraid to make the first offer. When someone says to you, which we all hear all the time, which is make me an offer, I get excited because now again, I can throw in that low ball offer like we just talked about. You want to start low, you submit the offer and just get the process started. Because that's what it's all about, guys. Getting the process started so you can speed it up. What most people do is that they don't even submit an offer. When they say, make me an offer, and then they just get scared and they never submit an offer. I will always make an offer. So get excited when someone does it because the seller is allowed to say, make me an offer, and I'm not gonna do any, I'm not gonna give you a number. You're not allowed to say that. Obviously, it's great if the seller gives you a good number, but when you're just waiting on the seller to give you a number, the point is most of the time they're not really that motivated. Point number 7, the best negotiations happen over the phone, not via email or text. So keep in mind that any important conversations have to happen over the phone. If you're having very important conversations via text or via email, you're missing out on opportunity, because what happens is you're not being able to feel them out on their reactions of when you say certain things. When you say like, well, the offer's $2 million. When they're doing it via email or via text message, they might be super excited about $2 million. They have this time to respond to you. You don't hear the excitement right away. They go, $2 million, oh, okay. Yeah, I might consider that. You don't hear their initial reactions. But what happens is that when you do it via text or email, you say 2 million, they might be saying to themselves, wow, that's actually a really good number. Let me do this. Let me go back to them at 2.2. Don't do that as often when you're over the phone. I'm gonna present the offer via email, and then I'm gonna call them to negotiate it, because I wanna show them, hey, I'm legitimate. So I always, 100% of the time, send an offer via email so they have a copy of it. But then I'm gonna call them as soon as I send it and say, hey, there's an offer in your email. Do you have 2 minutes for me? And we'll kind of we'll go over everything there. Point number 8, whoever needs it less wins. In the negotiations, it's important to note that the most motivated person to do something typically loses, which means that they're typically going to get it for less money, or they're not going to get as much money for X, right? Which that's for the seller. For the buyer, that means you're going to probably pay more. So when it comes to needing it more, you want to think about it like this. Of course, we want the seller to want to be motivated. However, that's just not the case most of the time. So the seller's not always drastically or super motivated. Most of the time, they're just like, listen, if I get the right price, I'll consider selling it, which is very, very normal. Which is the same thing with buyers. Most buyers are like, listen, if the numbers make sense, I'll consider buying it. And if it doesn't make sense, I'm not going to buy it unless you're a 1031 exchange buyer, where then you're like, hey, I actually need to buy something, or I'm gonna pay a crazy amount of taxes, let's buy something. So the rule of thumb is just never be in a place of need it. You wanna make sure that the seller, or the buyer, which would be a great thing for you, is in a place of need it, because if they need to sell or need to buy, they're gonna be willing to overpay or take less money. Point number 9, know your market better than your client. So when you know exactly the market price per square foot, cap rates better than your client does, and you're able to speak intelligently about these things like, hey, this is exactly where the cap rate is, or hey, this is exactly where the price per square foot averages based on the last 10 sales. Here they are. This is to show you exactly what the comparable properties are, and this is why your property is actually selling at a 2%, 5% premium on a price per square foot basis. When you can speak this intelligently about your marketplace, you're gonna be able to get better deals done. Point number 10, building connection and rapport builds trust, and when there's trust, deals get done. People need to see that you're actually legitimate for the most part. They're like, they don't want to just get like, just think about it. People make phone calls all the time, and they get calls from these people who are like, oh, would you consider selling? And then nothing ever happens. This is why we like making an offer 100% of the time, because it shows that we're legitimate. We can show background history and everything like that from our clients and our partners. So this way they say, wow, this person's legitimate. They bought a lot of deals like this. They have money, and now they just got to come to terms in which makes sense here. Point number 11, break up the negotiations into several pieces where you can get yes after yes after yes. So this has to do with things like price. Well, if we can get you the right price, would you consider taking payments over time? If we can get you those terms of exactly what you're looking for, which is like, we don't want to sell, we want to sell in the new year. So if we can get a closing in the new year, would you be totally against selling the property? No, I feel like that can make sense. So you want to have these micro wins over time, where if you can get a yes in those specific categories, you're going to be able to get a transaction or a sale over time. Point number 12, it's all about wording. You have to realize it is so important how you talk to somebody when you're negotiating a deal. You could be saying something of like, hey, would you be totally against taking an offer of X price? When they say, well, no, I mean, like, I really don't want to sell for that price. Instead of saying like, listen, our offer is 10 million. And then just shut up and let the number talk, because you don't have to continue word vomiting all over somebody. It's like, if you want to offer seller financing, well, would you be open to seller financing and holding a note and blah, blah, blah? No. Instead of saying something like that, you can say, so would you be totally against taking payments over time? This reframing of certain questions or certain statements is going to allow you to close a lot more business. Point number 13, last but not least, it's okay to not be great day one. You just want to get practice, right? Practice makes perfect. It's okay to not be great day one, and you're going to have to, eventually get the negotiation muscles pumping here. And that only happens by doing the damn thing. So make a lot of offers. You can partner with great agents like myself, all over the country, where we can support you in the negotiation process at the beginning of your career, because if you don't get started, it's hard to get better. So listen, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. We went through a lot of amazing points, so make sure you watch this over and over again. If you have yet to check out the description, where we have a bunch of amazing tools and resources, and some even for free, make sure you check that out in the description down below, as well as make sure you put down any questions you have in the comment section, because we read every single one of them. And if you have yet to like and subscribe to the channel, make sure you do so. I appreciate you so much, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care, everyone.